New cabinet duties for Kenora MP Greg Rickford. The latest snowfall results in some dangerous driving conditions. And new details in the Rob Ford crack smoking scandal. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Northwestern Ontario MP Greg Rickford is getting some new responsibilities in the Stephen Harper cabinet. The member of Kenora was named today as the new Minister of Natural Resources. Rickford replaces Joe Oliver in the role following Oliver's move to the finance portfolio. That key post became available after yesterday's surprise resignation by longtime Finance Minister Jim Flaherty. Rickford issued a statement saying he's honored by the appointment. And according to NDP MP John Rafferty, the new Natural Resources Minister differs from his predecessor in one key area. With the Ring of Fire at a critical stage, Rafferty says Rickford is a friend of mining and he feels he is a good fit for the position.
The Conservative government really cares about gas and oil. They don't care too much about mining, and so I'm hoping that Mr. Rickford is going to give a push to mining development in Northern Ontario. Of course, Ring of Fire comes to mind immediately. And, we haven't seen the provincial government or the federal government at the table there, so I'm hoping that now that he has the ear of the Prime Minister, he'll be able to do that.
Rickford also has a good deal of experience working with First Nations, which will be a major asset in his new position. We will have more on the cabinet changes later in the news hour. Well, the return of winter weather led to more than a dozen collisions around the city this morning. 3 of those happened on local highways. OPP say the first incident happened at around 7:30 when a driver rolled her vehicle on Highway 1117 east of Maple Ward Road. About 3 hours later, 2 vehicles collided on Highway 527. Injuries were minor in both those accidents, but a woman was sent to hospital with serious injuries after losing control of her vehicle on the Thunder Bay Expressway. Michelle Sufi reports.
Firefighters had to use the jaws of life to extract the woman driver of a Nissan Pathfinder. OPP Constable Diana Cole says at this time they are still unsure if the accident was a result of speeding. But she says most times when drivers do lose control of their vehicle in winter weather, speed is one of the factors.
Around 8:30, we had another vehicle that was driving on the expressway between Arthur and Harbour. That vehicle lost control as well, struck a light standard post, and went into the ditch, and that driver was transported to hospital with serious injuries.
The woman was apparently unconscious when emergency crews arrived, and an officer at the scene of the collision says she was bleeding from the head area. The vehicle sustained extensive damage and had to be torn open in order to extricate the driver. Cole says she is currently in stable condition. Compared to the OPP, it's been a different kind of day for the city police. Thunder Bay Police Traffic Sergeant Glenn Porter says he was surprised with the small amount of collisions that happened on the city streets with this light snowfall.
Well, actually, it's remarkably light today. We were expecting a little bit worse this morning, but people, I guess, they're so accustomed to having snow on the ground that they're getting the hang of it. And it's been a pretty good day so far, about a dozen collisions.
In light of the milder weather, which has brought greasy conditions on the road, Porter released a pair of videos to show the public what speed means when trying to stop on a little bit of snow. In the videos, both vehicles are going 50 kilometers an hour and took 7 car lengths to come to a full stop.
We just can't get over the number of people that, because of the mild weather we had last week, they're going so fast. And then, boom, we get a small snowfall. This isn't a major one. And it puts a little bit of snow on the ground and people have a hard time stopping.
Rochelle Sufi, TBT News.
A 48-year-old city man had to be taken to hospital last night following a collision that not only left him injured, but also facing theft charges. Police responded to a call at the CLE grounds after witnesses saw a man smash the window of a vehicle and then flee the scene on a bicycle. A short time later, that cyclist was involved in a collision with a car at the intersection of May and Finlayson Streets. Police say a toolbox taken in the theft was recovered at the scene. More testimony today at the Superior Court of Justice as the Kesley Jacob trial continues. Jacob is facing a manslaughter charge in connection with the December 2011 death of 53-year-old Barney Beaver at the Victoria Inn. Today, the Crown prosecutor called his final witnesses to the stand. Courtney Rutherford has the details.
First up today was paramedic Barley Burness, who responded to the call at the Victoria Inn. Burness says upon arriving at room 374, he encountered the most disturbing scene he's come across in his 23 years of service. The paramedic says Barney Beaver was laying face up on the floor at the end of the hotel bed. He was non-responsive with blood and vomit covering his face. His eyes were swollen shut and he had severe facial swelling. The victim was quickly placed in an ambulance and transported to the Regional Health Sciences Centre. Beaver remained unresponsive throughout the trip. Previous testimony in the case indicated the victim, Jacob, and 2 other friends were served by the final witness in the Crown's case. Waitress Ashton Huffman told the court she didn't serve any of them alcohol at the time, but she described Beaver as being heavily intoxicated to the point he was unable to keep his head off the table. She says he also stumbled as he left the restaurant. Today's witnesses concluded the Crown's case. Presentation of evidence is expected to be completed by Monday, with closing arguments Tuesday. Barring any changes in the schedule, the 12-person jury should begin their deliberations next Wednesday. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
A property being looked at as a possible youth center in Thunder Bay is behind on its taxes and could be put up for sale. The Port Arthur Pros Vita has been proposed as the new home for the Indian Friendship Center and a youth center. As of December 2013, the property had tax arrears totaling nearly $95,000. The taxes have been in arrears since 2011, and that makes the property eligible for a tax sale unless the bill is paid up. Last September, the city paid $57,000 to put a hold on the Port Arthur Pros Vita. That hold is set to expire at the end of the month. The $10 million youth center project is up in the air right now, as it looks as though senior levels of government won't help fund the plan. The head of the IFC believes the city should purchase the property and move ahead with the youth center. If the taxes aren't paid on the property, the city could bid on it, provided there is a municipal purpose for its use. City officials aren't commenting, and council will meet behind closed doors next week to discuss the project. Well, just under $115,000 in back taxes have been written off on a building in the downtown North Core after a report to council last week indicating there were no bids for the Lyceum Theatre property. The city took on ownership of the building. If a purchaser is not found, the historic structure will most likely be demolished. The landmark is on the registry to become a heritage building, which means there is a 60-day window to challenge any demolition order for the site. There are still hopes that now that the tax burden has been eliminated, there will be new interest in the property. But the aging building is in need of a large amount of work aimed at repairing a leaky roof, water damage, and mold. Heritage Advisory Committee member Larry Hebert says despite its problems, the building's foundation is strong, and he hopes someone will build upon that while preserving the classic facade.
Now, then they have a chance, but if there's no takers, then I guess they're going to see it come down, unfortunately, but we hope from a Heritage Advisory Committee standpoint to at least preserve the facade on the Cumberland Street side, because that's got the old sign, Lyceum Theatre, right into the stone, and we think it's worth preserving that part, much like Mr. Habib did on the south side with the Bank of Commerce.
There has already been interest from 3 separate parties, according to Hebert. He also said there is no time frame for a sale to be completed. Well, a small legal victory for the municipality of Shunyan users of O'Connor Point. The summertime hotspot for people in the area has been locked up and closed off to the public since an injunction was granted last year. The injunction came following a pair of million-dollar lawsuits that were filed against the municipality. Families who live nearby say they put up with drinking, excessive noise, trespassing, and stolen and damaged property. Last October, a judge ruled in favor of the families and the area was fenced up. Yesterday, a leave for appeal was granted to Shunyan. Council will decide on Monday whether to proceed with the appeal, which may not be heard until the fall. The beach will remain closed until the injunction is lifted. Well, officials with Premier Gold Mines say their plan to relocate part of the Trans-Canada Highway and other infrastructure in Geraldton is nothing new when it comes to big mining projects. The Hardrock Gold project is currently in the preliminary phases, with plans to develop an open-pit mine in 2016. Jonathan Wilson reports.
As I said, it's our #1 project.
The president and CEO of Premier Gold Mines was the final guest speaker at the Grow Greenstone Expo. Ewan Downey left attendees feeling a lot of optimism about the company's proposed Hardrock Gold project. Greenstone Mayor Ron Beaulieu says the mine would bring back morale to his community.
Oh my God, that is a project that moving forward, and as you saw the presentation, possibility of a mine and within 2.5, 3 years. I mean, could you think the impact that would do for our region?
But it would also have an impact on existing infrastructure. The huge open pit would be located on the site of an old mine next to Geraldton, and the Trans-Canada Highway and many other things would have to be relocated for the project to go ahead. Among the casualties, this highway gas station, half of the 18-hole golf course, the OPP detachment built only 7 years ago, and this residential neighborhood. Downey says they still have to complete their environmental permitting, a feasibility study, and make a production decision before those relocations would have to happen. And if they do, it would not set any precedents.
Yeah, it's been done a lot for mining around Canada in the past. Timmins, GoCorp's moved the highway several times to their open pit operations. Houses, Agnico's done it in Quebec. Cisco did it in Quebec, so it's not the first time a company said, hey, we have to move some infrastructure to make this a reality.
Beaulieu says Premier has been very open all along about their plans, and he says the company will make sure things happen the right way. He says his council is willing to do whatever it takes to make way for the mine and the hundreds of millions of development dollars that would come with it. And Beaulieu says nothing is impossible.
For example, moving the Trans-Canada Highway, or moving the OPP station, or moving the interpretive center. You know, those are material things. We have to be able to deal with that, and we will. The harder ones are the ones that are living in the areas where now strategically that they will have to probably move out of their homes. I understand that that's hard.
We've set up a local community relation office where people can come in and learn. So we've been very sensitive to the need, and obviously we'd have to do something that is acceptable to all the local homeowners before we proceed.
If gold prices remain high and everything else goes according to plan, the development of the Hardrock mine could begin in 2016. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Confederation College has chosen a new lakefront for their floatplane training course. Kenora Mayor Dave Canfield made the announcement that his community on Lake of the Woods has been selected as the new location for the popular college program. Last year, Confederation had issues with their original setup at Evo Lake near Atikokan. There were complaints that the frequent takeoffs and landings were disturbing cottagers on the lake. And the college eventually announced they would look for a new site. The chair of the School of Aviation at Confederation says the goal of this move is to find a sustainable location for the next 5 years. He says the people on the Kenora part of Lake of the Woods are enthusiastic about the new proposal.
A location for our float flying program that offers us a sustained sustainability for the foreseeing future, to assure that the float program can continue on for a long time to come. One of the great things about the location we chose was the inclusivity of all the members of the community, municipality, and all the community stakeholders, and their enthusiasm.
The Kenora location is a bit farther away for the 60 students they bring in every September, but the adjacent lakes are going to provide an ample area for training.
Well, would you believe this? We're on the eve of spring and we've got snow, but at least we got seasonal temperatures today, Fiona.
We certainly do. Temperatures actually cracked the freezing mark, which is why, although we had snow for most of the day, for a very short period of time, it actually turned to rain, and with the high of 1 Celsius, it's no surprise that it was more of a rain-wet-snow combination. That's with winds from the north-northwest at 11, gusting at times up to 17 kilometers per hour, so relatively light winds for most of the day. At this hour, pretty much everyone's hovering right around the freezing mark, some bumping up to it right now. Thunder Bay is sitting at 0, as is Atikokan and Sault Ste. Marie. Everyone else just tipping below -1 to -3 range. And the snow continues to the northwest, pardon me, in the Red Lake area and in Sault Ste. Marie. Everywhere else, just a whole lot of cloud cover. Now tonight we will drop down to a low of -9 with a wind chill. Could feel a little close to -15, and there's still a chance we could see a little bit more snow, just a short passing snow shower or two overnight, with winds from the west-northwest, a little bit gusty at times, up to 40 kilometers per hour. But it's going to move out, and then we are looking at a fairly calm Thursday. Unfortunately, as you can see, we're kind of between two systems. We get rid of one, have a day off, And then we've got a second low that's going to be moving in. Now, thus far, AccuWeather meteorologists say it's heading straight for us, kind of got a bullseye on Thunder Bay. So if it hits us directly, we could be seeing quite a bit of snow at the end of the week. However, as is often the case, these systems tend to bounce slightly north or slightly south of us. So we're keeping an eye on it for the next little while. Unfortunately, behind that, we've got another Arctic blast just in time for the weekend. So the day after spring starts, we could be seeing snow. 2 days after spring starts, we could see temperatures start to plummet. Not exactly the best way to start a new season, but we'll have more details on the actual temperatures later on in the news hour.
All right, thanks, Fiona. Well, we already told you a little bit about the federal cabinet shuffle, but we have more details on that coming up for you right after the break.
This is Joe Oliver leaving Rideau Hall. He was just sworn in as Canada's new finance minister.
Well, as we told you earlier in the news hour, Canada has a new finance minister. He's former Minister of Natural Resources Joe Oliver. The departure of former Finance Minister Jim Flaherty has forced a small game of musical chairs that included Kenor's Greg Rickford. Julie Van Dusen reports.
This is Joe Oliver leaving Rideau Hall. He was just sworn in as Canada's new finance minister. answering not one question from waiting reporters. Ed Holder is the new science minister. Greg Rickford becomes Minister of Natural Resources, all smiles with his family, but not a peep about his new job. Same silence from Prime Minister Stephen Harper, shielded from the cameras and reporters by his big black SUV. This shuffling of the deck was all precipitated by the departure of Jim Flaherty, the only finance minister Harper has ever had. Flaherty began his tenure in 2006. Back then, he had a $13 billion surplus to work with. But two pricey GST cuts, followed by the worst recession since the Great Depression, led to a deficit of more than $50 billion. Then the stimulus spending began on infrastructure projects that turned into a lengthy government PR campaign dubbed the Economic Action Plan. Flaherty's stick handling of the 2008 downturn is winning him praise today.
Well, it was a very challenging environment, and of course we saw many finance ministers around the world tumble, many governments tumble in the wake of the financial crisis.
The 73-year-old Joe Oliver is a former investment banker. As Natural Resources Minister, he has spent the last few years selling the merits of pipelines. Now, as the new finance minister, he's in the lucky spot of having to figure out what to do with a surplus instead of wrestling a deficit. The leader of the opposition isn't impressed with the Prime Minister's choice for finance minister.
So Joe Oliver has a record of making things up, of insulting people from environmentalists to First Nations, and frankly, his appointment is an embarrassment to Canada.
Many expect Joe Oliver will be a caretaker finance minister, not rocking the boat, waiting until the next election to reveal a surplus and a budget full of campaign promises. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A flustered Rob Ford is once again running the gauntlet of reporters at Toronto City Hall.
What was in the pipe, Mr. Mayor?
More details have been released about that video of the mayor allegedly smoking crack cocaine. Newly unsealed documents. Police describe Ford holding what appears to be a glass cylinder in one hand and a lighter in the other. It says at one point, Mayor Ford applies the flame to the tip of the cylinder in a circular motion. The documents describe information gathered from a police investigation. It looked into the mayor, his friend Alexander Lyceum, and several others over allegations of drug use and extortion. A First Nations protest is blocking some via rail routes in Ontario. It's taking place on a busy corridor connecting traffic from Montreal to Toronto. Protesters are staging the blockade near Napanee to demand a federal inquiry into murdered and missing Aboriginal women. BS's trains are blocked from moving in both directions along routes between Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. The company is warning customers to expect delays and is currently busing passengers around the blockade. A similar protest earlier this month stopped traffic along parts of this rail corridor and led to charges being laid against some demonstrators. A man who was supposed to stand trial in Edmonton for the murder of an elderly couple learned today that he won't be. The Crown stayed the charges against Travis Vader, who was accused of killing the couple, who was on a vacation road trip when they disappeared. As Briar Stewart reports, those who knew the couple worry now they may never know the truth.
The mystery of what happened to Lyle and Marie McCann seems to be as unclear now as it was when they first disappeared 4 years ago. Their bodies were never found, but Travis Vader was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But today, the Crown decided to stay those charges.
I'm not in a position to make any comment today.
Officials wouldn't say much, only that new information from the RCMP led to the decision. The McCanns were last seen fueling up their motorhome on July 3rd, 2010. It was found burnt out 2 days later, about 150 kilometers west of Edmonton. The police were notified, but they didn't start investigating until 5 days after that, when the couple failed to show up to meet their family in BC. Hundreds of officers worked on the case and the search was extensive. But what evidence the police had against Vader was always unclear, and his lawyer says there's a reason for that.
It was shoddily gathered, and it was a bunch of strings that was never tied together.
This is the street where the McCanns used to live. Today, when their former neighbors found out that at this point, Travis Vader is no longer facing murder charges and not going to trial, they told me they were disappointed, but not surprised.
I have to say I wondered right from the beginning if they actually had enough to hold over for that, but it sounds as if they didn't. And my heart goes out to the family.
Yeah, I really don't know what to think. I kind of had suspected that there was more information that we weren't aware of.
Now the question is, will the McCann's family ever have answers?
I feel really sorry for them because closure will never take place if, as long as they're missing and they don't know what happened to them.
And don't know who is responsible. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Edmonton.
In the United States, Toyota is being hit with a massive penalty and a criminal charge over the way it handled safety issues. After a 4-year investigation, the company is admitting wrongdoing after a string of accidents and recalls involving runaway acceleration. Howard Gould reports.
Today, we can say for certain that Toyota intentionally concealed information and misled the public about the safety issues behind these recalls.
It's hard to know what hurts Toyota more, the $1.2 billion fine or the scorching criticism delivered today.
Put simply, Toyota's conduct was shameful. It showed a blatant disregard for systems and laws designed to look after the safety of consumers. By the company's own admissions, it protected its brand ahead of its own customers.
It took a series of fatal crashes before a reluctant Toyota eventually recalled millions of vehicles. As part of today's settlement, Toyota admitted it misled both consumers and regulators. 4 years ago, Douglas Landry's Toyota accelerated out of control. Today, he wants to know why American authorities seem to have been far more aggressive than Canadian regulators.
Why isn't our government protecting us the same way as the U.S. government is protecting their citizens?
Transport Canada has not responded to our inquiries today. Toyota says it has gone beyond the requirements of the U.S. agreement, improving both operations and quality. But in the U.S., Toyota is like a common criminal, essentially on probation for 3 years now. An independent monitor will supervise its operations. If Toyota complies, the criminal charge will be dismissed after 3 years. Tension is now focusing on General Motors, which is facing intense scrutiny over the way it has handled recalls connected to a problem with cars suddenly shutting off. An ignition switch problem linked to a dozen deaths. Howard Gould, CBC News, Toronto.
The transition of Crimea to Russian hands continued today with the storming of a Ukrainian naval base by militia. They forced out the Ukrainian soldiers who worked there. Margaret Evans was there as it happened.
We're standing outside the main Ukrainian, or what was the main Ukrainian Navy headquarters here in Sevastopol. If you look over my shoulder, what you see are Ukrainian soldiers being searched as they come out of the base. The people controlling access to the base are Russians. These people, the soldiers, the sailors, have been coming, and you can see they're carrying their bags. They've been coming to take their personal belongings. This has been going on all morning long. People coming out with their personal property. They've also looked for...
Excuse me, stop moving.
Okay, we're going to move on. This man behind me, this man behind me is a Russian soldier. The Russian soldiers are the ones who are asking me to leave. As you can see, there are these kinds of tense situations take place. We're just going to move across the street where the Russian soldiers want us to be, but it gives you an idea of the kind of tensions here and who's really in charge. We've been talking to some of the Ukrainians coming in and out all morning long. They say they're not being given any answers by the Russians, although the Crimeans want them to swear an oath of fealty to Russia and to Crimea. They've also said that they're quite unhappy with what they're hearing from Kiev. They don't know whether to stay or to go. Other bases around Crimea, there are still Ukrainian troops staying in, they're digging in. Some of them are even building up sandbags. But for the people here, they say it's a human moment for them. They've been serving in the Ukrainian army for a long time, in the Navy. One woman told us she's been an officer for 18 years, that she would rather work as a cashier than sign an oath of allegiance to Russia. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Sevastopol.
Exhaustion is wearing on everyone touched by the disappearance of flight MH370. Families of passengers who are angry and frustrated are now overwhelmed with emotional turmoil, and they're lashing out at Malaysian officials who are running out of answers to desperate questions. Andrew Lee reports.
Uncontrollable anger at the daily news conference in Kuala Lumpur.
The excruciating weight, too much to handle. They wanted their voices to be heard by the international media. We need to know the truth. We need to know where the plane is, said this woman. We don't need someone to look after us every day. We don't know until when we will be waiting, said this mother of a passenger. It's been 12 days. Where is my son? Malaysian authorities then tried to keep families away from the media. That's when the crush turned into chaos as police forcibly removed family members.
Why are we being stopped from speaking to the relatives? Please, will you tell us?
If you wouldn't mind, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
So we're asking very politely.
BBC News here. Will you tell us why you're not allowing us to speak to these Chinese relatives?
Malaysia's transport minister admitted the stress is weighing on him.
Though we understand their concerns, we are trying our very best. And it is heart-wrenching, even for me.
In Beijing, Malaysian officials couldn't escape the anger. Indeed, us family members have a lot of anger, mainly targeted at the Malaysian side. Investigators are still taking a long look at the flight simulator taken from the 53-year-old pilot Zahari Ahmed Shah. Today, officials revealed it had data deleted from it.
Forensic work to retrieve this data is ongoing. I would like to take this opportunity to state that the passengers, the pilots, and the crew remain innocent until proven otherwise.
Outside Malaysia's international airport where the flight originated, people have been leaving messages of support for the families. The mystery of the missing jet has uncorked deep, heartfelt emotions, and there's no end in sight. Andrew Lee, CBC News, Beijing.
Well, a down day on the major North American markets. Toronto saw the TSX fall 35 points to 14,334. The Dow dropped 114 points to 16,222, and the Nasdaq slipped 25 points to 43.07. The Canadian dollar lost over 0.8 cents, closing at 88.93 cents US. Gold dropped $17 to $1,341 an ounce. And oil was up slightly, climbing above $100 a barrel. Well, Team Canada was looking for a 6th straight win today for curling.
Yeah, the only thing about getting hot at this point of the playdowns for Rachel Homan is you got to worry about all of a sudden just losing the momentum in one-game playoff.
Yeah.
So it'll be really important for her to secure a spot in the 1 versus 2 page playoff game, which will give her 2 shots to move on to the final. Well, Ottawa's Rachel Homan was hoping to move a step closer to earning a berth in the 1 versus 2 page playoff game, which is set for Friday night at the World Women's Curling Championships in New Brunswick, taking on a tough South Korean rink this afternoon. Pick it up, tied at 2 in the 4th end. The Canadian skip has the hammer and regains the lead over the Koreans as Homan. Watch her hit and stick the shooter. She doesn't miss shots like that very often. Count them up, it's 3, making it 5-2 for Team Canada. Off to the 7th end now with a score of 5-3. Homan has last rock, won't slip up, putting the pressure on Ji Soon Kim with a hit and slight roll for the deuce to open up a 7-3 lead in the 8th. Canada takes over top spot with its 5th or 6th straight win, improving to 8-1 as Kim misses the angle raise. It was a tough shot to make, so it's a steal at 3, making the final read 10-3 for Canada, who will play China tomorrow afternoon. The Canadian Cross-Country Ski Championships continue tomorrow in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Lakehead Scott Hill has already locked up the junior men's crown. Lakehead also leads the overall points race by 71 over Laval. The juvenile boys and girls technique sprints are set for tomorrow. And Canada's Paralympic team, they're back home from Sochi, Russia, winning 16 medals, including 7 gold. Brian McKeever led the way with 3 gold.
It's never been about the medals, it's just about pushing our own limits and showing what's possible for disabled sport. And, hopefully we've done that, and hopefully people can see just what the level is at the Paralympics, and we'll hope to continue that movement, push towards the future, and keep building for the future with our young team.
Team Canada's Paralympic curling team also making a triumphant return this evening. Jim Armstrong's rink winning Canada's 3rd gold medal in Sochi in curling. For team lead Sonia Gaudet, the win symbolizes much more than a personal accomplishment.
I'm very proud. It's a fulfilling feeling. It's full of a lot of emotion because, the medals basically are a symbol of the bigger message that the power of sport has and the power of the Paralympic Games.
These guys are world-class athletes, and I think people need to realize that. And they train every bit as hard as every other Olympian over there, and it went to show just how, with the results that they had over there, just how hard they do work.
4 games in the NHL tonight. St. Louis can secure a playoff spot with a win in Chicago. The Leafs host Tampa Bay. Winnipeg welcomes Colorado, and Vancouver entertains Nashville. Checking out the action last night, Leafs Ian Mozart, the speedy Gustav Nyquist. This boy can skate. Gets a pair of goals, including this as he beats James Reimer low far corner for his 19th. A long-time Leafs nemesis Daniel Alfredsson gets the game winner off the 2-on-1. That'll make the final read 3-2. Next up, Montreal. Thomas Vanek stole the spotlight with a hat trick, including the game winner. Habs spoil Patrick Waugh's return behind the bench, beating the Avalanche 6-3. Rangers goalie Henrik Lundqvist overtakes Mike Richter for most career wins in team history with his 302nd as New York pummels Ottawa 8-4. Mike Camilleri hits the 20-goal club again as the Flames down the Sabres 3-1. And Edmonton got 3-point nights from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jordan Eberle as they breeze by the Nashville Predators, who are slumping 5-1 the final there. NFL news, defensive tackle Antonio Johnson's back with Tennessee, inking a multi-year deal. Quarterback Michael Vick will visit the New York Jets this weekend. CFL news, the draft's a couple of months away, but the draft combine goes this weekend in Toronto. The Manitoba Bisons have a trio of players going, including defensive lineman Evan Gill, who is projected to go late in round 1.
I spent my whole life really on the field.
A lifetime of playing football will come down to one weekend. Ranked 6th by the CFL Scouting Bureau, Winnipeg's Evan Gill will be looking to make a name for himself and leave a lasting impression at this week's CFL Combine.
I feel pretty confident about everything going into Toronto. I mean, I've been down training in Florida for the past couple months. It all went pretty well. I mean, it was a good experience, and I feel pretty good going into it. I feel healthy.
Most of the drills involve strength and speed, but the testing takes place on the field, in the weight room, and even in the classroom, with prospective players not only testing their muscles, but also their minds with extensive interviews and even an intelligence test.
You're sitting there filling out a bubble sheet on that seems to never end. 400 questions of just circling bubbles. So, I mean, it gets to your head after a while, but I'm really looking forward to the whole experience.
To prepare for the combine, Gill has put on more than 20 pounds and now tips the scales at over 300. Current Blue Bombers offensive lineman Chris Greaves went through the rigors of testing back in his draft year in 2010, and he told the Morning News on Monday that it takes months to prepare.
You train for 3 months, you have to learn how to run like an Olympic sprinter, which is kind of awkward when you're anywhere between 200 and 300 pounds.
But nothing can prepare players for one segment where they're paraded out one by one like it's a beauty pageant.
It's never a comfortable feeling to, you know, walk out there in nothing but skin-tight shorts and no shirt and walk out in front of a room full of 100 men.
Gill's testing begins Friday with the draft still almost 2 months away. Russ Hobson, Global Sports.
March Madness tips off tomorrow. Florida, Virginia, Wichita State, and Arizona are the top seeds. And once again, there is no shortage of Canadian talent to check out in U.S. men's college basketball's Showcase Tournament. Peter Armstrong has more.
March Madness, the epic college basketball tournament. 50 million Americans will painstakingly fill out a bracket. Among them, U.S. President Barack Obama.
The annual Baracketology. I've got the magic pen for you.
And this year, even the president has his eyes on Canadian players.
I'm going to put Kansas down here. I think Wiggins stepped up.
Wiggins, of course, is Vaughan, Ontario's Andrew Wiggins, the much-hyped, almost absurdly athletic forward for the Kansas Jayhawks, anticipated to go #1 in the upcoming NBA draft. The poster boy for the explosion of basketball talent in Canada, but particularly around Toronto.
I've argued with my American friends that Toronto may have as good a high school basketball talent as any city down here in the United States.
This year, 27 Canadians are playing in March Madness. Among them, Wiggins' brother Nick with undefeated Wichita State, Mississauga's Nick Stauskas at Michigan, and the Brampton duo Brady Heslop at Baylor and Tyler Innes at Syracuse.
I think Canadian basketball is going to be well represented in the NCAA tournament, and I think it bodes well for the future of the game north of the border.
It certainly has people excited here. This is Wiggins' old high school. That's his old coach.
All the Canadians that are playing in the March Madness tournament and seeing all this hype and sort of the explosion of talent in the area, the kids are saying, well, why not me?
These two players have been stacking up recruitment letters. The big guy on the left is just 16 years old.
It gives us a lot of hope for us young guys because then it shows us that we can make it too.
And that's the real legacy here, that next year there will be even more Canadians in the tournament, that one day one of these players may be the next one singled out by the U.S. president. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto Raptors will try and snap a 2-game losing streak in the Big Easy tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. The Raps lost in overtime to Atlanta last night, 118-113. DeMar DeRozan with 29 points. And the Blue Jays beat up on the Phillies 11-6 in Florida today. Jose Bautista had a pair of homers. The Jays' exhibition record 8-11. And regular season starts in less than 2 weeks. Imagine that, playing baseball in 2 weeks. Won't be doing that here.
Don't believe it.
No, not here.
Don't believe it. All right, this season on Survivor, it's all about brawn versus brain versus beauty. Well, things are about to change. With more, here's a complete lineup on Teletalk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, starting at 8, it's Survivor. And Jeff announces a game change just as the brains face defeat. At 9 on Working the Angles, Jimmy helps Jenna with her first case by seducing her opponent. At 9:30 on About a Boy, Marcus asks Will for advice on how to get invited to a birthday party. And at 10 on Chicago PD, the only witness to a gang shooting is Olinsky's daughter. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay at 8, a pitcher takes the sting out of the summer on Dragon's Den. At 9 on Recipe to Riches, chefs compete to get their appetizers on store shelves this weekend. And at 11:35, George sits down with Republic of Doyle star Alan Hocko. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, we are seeing relatively seasonal values. Unfortunately, Fiona, we're not really seeing the sky conditions to match those weather temperatures that we're seeing.
No, we need the other half of the equation, and so far we've only got the temperatures to work with. 1 Celsius, so we had as our high, so we had snow, and then for about an hour or so it turned to more like a rain consistency with those milder temperatures, and winds were rather light today, so it wasn't all that bad for being 1 day away from the first day of spring. Now if we can just get the sky conditions to work with us. Vancouver today, cloudy skies and some showers. Prince George currently at 3 Celsius and a few clouds. In Alberta, definitely mild temperatures, 8 Celsius under mostly cloudy skies, but both Edmonton and Calgary are going to see a drop in temperatures. Tomorrow, temperatures are going to continue to drop all afternoon, so quite a bit cooler. Saskatchewan also going to see a bit of a cooling off period. Right now they're above the freezing mark. Saskatoon at 5, Regina at 2, but that's going to change tomorrow as well. Meanwhile, Winnipeg pretty much mirrored our temperatures for most of the day. They hit a high of 1, they're currently at 0, but they had a lot more sunshine than we did. It was actually a really nice day before spring day in Winnipeg. Toronto currently at 3 Celsius. They're under some showers. That's going to continue tonight. Ottawa at -2 has some light flurries that just began in the last hour or so. That is going to continue tonight, but it's going to turn to rain by morning because the temperatures are also going to rise there as well. Quebec City at -2 with some cloudy conditions. And in the Maritimes, Fredericton looks pretty nice right now, sitting on the freezing mark, lots of sunshine. They're under a snowfall warning. They're expecting about 20 centimeters of snow tomorrow. Meanwhile, Charlottetown at -3 and Halifax at -1 are expecting a mix of snow and freezing rain tomorrow. So it's going to be pretty nasty in the Maritimes for the first day of spring. Meanwhile, St. John's -2 at this point, just a few clouds and lots of sunshine expected for tomorrow. Now today, last of this system started to move out and will continue for the next few hours. As we head into tomorrow, looking pretty calm, not a whole lot happening in the region. But as one system moves out, bang, we've got system number 2 moving in, and as you can see, it's heading directly for us so far. So by Friday, we could be hit, and we could be hit fairly directly. All we can hope is that the worst of the precipitation bounces either north or south because it is very slick, and behind that we've got some cooler temperatures. That means wet snow over the next day or so, or over Friday, and then as we head into the weekend, temperatures drop. That's going to freeze up, so it's not looking too good. Now tonight, things are drying out as the snow moves out to the from the west into the eastern region of our province, and temperatures a little bit on the cool side, -9 in Sioux Lookout, -11 in Red Lake and Fort Frances. Snow continuing in both Greenstone and Sault Ste. Marie. They're expecting about 4 or 5 centimeters tonight, and that'll continue for a few hours in the morning, then start to clear out. But temperatures continue to hover just below, or in some cases just above the freezing mark, with some sunny breaks here and there to the west. Currently in the city of Thunder Bay, we are sitting on the freezing mark. We've got some light snow and winds are from the northwest. Tonight, a low of -9, a couple of snow showers, and then it's going to be over. Wind chill about -15. We're going to start the day tomorrow at about -6 under mostly cloudy skies, but we will top out the day above freezing once again, 1 Celsius under mainly cloudy conditions. Temperatures dip just slightly to the freezing mark on Friday with some light snow, and that's where we hit the colder temperatures heading into the weekend. Fair amount of cloud cover, drier, but -6 Saturday, -5 Sunday, and that'll continue into Monday with mainly cloudy conditions. That's your forecast.
Thanks, Fiona. Well, no one's really going to argue that we've seen our fair share of snow this winter. You, not a big fan, you don't want any more snow. But you're probably not going to complain after we show you what we're going to show you after the break. Stay with us. Well, it's been a long winter with many parts of Canada getting more than their fair share of snow, but if you thought you had too much snow to shovel, this next video will probably make you think twice. Hard to believe, but there's a house under all that snow. A snowstorm swept through northeastern Newfoundland earlier this week, and this home was almost completely buried. Though some of that snow is actually a buildup from previous storms, the couple who own the home say the snow's piling up faster than they can clear it, and they're afraid the roof won't hold. See, I told you wouldn't complain after seeing that. Could be worse.
No, I'm just happy I found my third shovel this week. So. I'd offer to help them, but I don't think
that's one shovel's good. No? All right, we're going to recap our top story. Well, after Jim Flaherty's resignation yesterday, the federal cabinet has done some shuffling, resulting in MP Greg Rickford now becoming the Minister of Natural Resources.
And there are 4 NHL games tonight featuring the Leafs, the Canucks, and the Winnipeg Jets. We'll take you around the rinks later on.
And we could see a couple snow showers, low of -9 tonight. Tomorrow, first day of spring, and a high of 1.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening. Thank you.